Imagine sending a gift meant to boost your brand, only for it to blow up in your face so badly that Hollywood ends up laughing instead of applauding. That's exactly what just happened to Meghan Markle. On Robert De Niro's 82nd birthday, she tried to impress him with a so-called royal gift basket, stamped with her forbidden HRH tag. Instead of gratitude, she got a brutal rejection that spread through Hollywood like wildfire. And what unfolded next didn't just embarrass her, it exposed the cracks in her entire image. So here's the setup. Robert De Niro, one of Hollywood's most respected legends, turns 82. The man has Oscars, iconic roles, and doesn't need anyone's approval. Then, out of nowhere, he gets this fancy basket from Meghan Markle. Inside, a bottle of her homemade wine valued at $90, some overpriced trinkets that looked like they came straight out of a luxury gift shop, and the kicker, a tag with HRH, her royal title she's technically not even supposed to use anymore. Imagine putting King on your Starbucks cup when no one in the room believes it. That's what it looked like. De Niro reportedly wasn't impressed. In fact, he shut the whole thing down instantly, basically saying, "I don't need this. I don't even want this." Ouch. That's not just a rejection. That's a direct slap in the face of her PR stunt. And the thing is, Meghan didn't send this as a sweet little birthday gesture. No, this was a calculated move. Attach her brand to De Niro's name, borrow his credibility, and sneak back into Hollywood's good graces. But instead of a thank you, she ended up with an unspoken reality check. People online had a field day. Memes called it a bribe in a basket. Social media dragged her wine, with comments like, if De Niro wanted overpriced wine, he could get it at any Beverly Hills grocery store. Some even joked Harry was probably in the kitchen sticking on HRH labels like a part-time intern. That image alone probably got more laughs than her entire Spotify podcast. And the real sting. This wasn't just funny, it was damaging. Hollywood insiders saw straight through the act. And here's where things get even worse. Meghan has been walking a tightrope ever since leaving royal life. She insists she broke free to carve her own independent path, but at the same time, she keeps clinging to the one thing that made her globally relevant in the first place. Her royal branding, that little HRH tag on De Niro's basket, wasn't just decorative. It was a desperate reminder that she still wants to play Duchess in Hollywood, even though she's not supposed to. Think about how out of touch that looks. You claim you don't need the palace, yet every move you make screams, "Please notice me, because I was royal once." And to Hollywood power players that reads as desperation, not prestige. Instead of making her look classy, it made her look needy. To them, it wasn't a thoughtful gift. It was a plea for validation wrapped up in ribbon. And this isn't a one-time slip. Her image has been wobbling for years. Remember Spotify? They pulled the plug and called her work unsustainable. Netflix quietly shrunk down the mega deal that was supposed to make her a streaming powerhouse. Even her relationship with Oprah's inner circle has reportedly cooled off. Meghan once had the spotlight, but now she's fading fast. Sending that basket wasn't about generosity. It was about clawing back attention. But Robert De Niro isn't the guy you pull into your brand-building scheme. He's not some influencer who posts freebies on Instagram. He's old-school Hollywood, blunt and unimpressed by stunts. And by rejecting her gift so decisively, he exposed the contradiction Meghan's been trying to hide. She's desperate to stay relevant, but she keeps leaning on the very title she said she walked away from. That's why this rejection hit harder than any tabloid headline. It wasn't just no thanks. It was Hollywood itself saying, "We see through you." Here's where things went nuclear. De Niro didn't just say no. His rejection spread like wildfire through Hollywood. And if there's one thing this town loves more than gossip, it's watching someone overplay their hand. Within days, Meghan's gift basket wasn't a classy gesture anymore. It was a punchline. People started calling it a bribe in a basket, and the nickname stuck. Assistants, producers, even actors were laughing about it behind closed doors. It's one thing to be ignored in Hollywood, but being laughed at, that's fatal. Social media turned up the heat. Memes popped up everywhere. One showed De Niro, holding the basket with the caption, "I survived Scorsese, but not this." Another said, "Next time, just send him a Groupon, Meg." Brutal. And to make it worse, even her homemade wine, the one product she probably thought would shine, was mocked online. People joked that Harry probably made it in the basement like a side hustle, with him running around shouting, "Don't spill, Meg. That's our last bottle." Honestly, that might be the only scenario where the wine would actually sell. But here's the real danger. The basket exposed Meghan's disconnect. To the public, it looked like a simple flop. To Hollywood insiders, it was a flashing red siren. It wasn't about De Niro rejecting her wine. It was about the industry rejecting her entire approach. She's still trying to use the royal brand as a cheat code to climb higher. But the people who matter in Hollywood aren't buying it. They don't want a duchess trying to bribe her way into their circle. They want substance. And the second you look desperate, the doors slam shut. And that's exactly what started happening. The rejection wasn't just embarrassing, it was contagious. When A-listers start laughing instead of applauding, when assistants start treating your gifts like gag props, your credibility evaporates. Meghan thought she was buying back her relevance, but instead she ended up exposing just how fragile her brand really is. And if you think this was the end of her missteps, think again, because this gift basket was only the latest in a long list of flops. The basket fiasco wasn't some isolated mistake. It was just another chapter in Meghan's long list of misfires. Remember the big Spotify deal? Gone. Executives didn't even sugarcoat it. They called her content not sustainable. Ouch. Then came Netflix, the mega deal that was supposed to launch her as a Hollywood powerhouse. What started as a billion-dollar fantasy shrank into a handful of underwhelming projects that barely made headlines. And it doesn't stop there. Even Oprah, the ultimate Hollywood connector, has reportedly distanced herself. The same woman who once gave Meghan a primetime platform now keeps quiet when her name comes up. Add to that a birthday this year, where hardly anyone in the industry bothered to publicly acknowledge her, except apparently her legal rep. And you get the picture. The spotlight is fading fast. And here's the kicker. Insiders claim that De Niro wasn't the only one. Meghan has allegedly been sending similar gift baskets to other Hollywood power players. Producers, actors, executives. Most quietly ignore them. Some send them back. A few just laugh. The common thread: nobody's biting. These aren't thank you notes. They're desperate feelers dressed up with ribbon. Hollywood sees through it. And the cruel irony is, the harder she tries to buy back credibility, the more obvious the cracks in her image become. Here's the thing. Meghan keeps acting like Hollywood is just another version of the royal bubble. Back in palace life, status alone opened doors. A title, a wave, a curated photo op, and people bent over backwards. But Hollywood doesn't work like that. Here your image is everything, and once people sense desperation, you're finished. And Meghan's every move right now screams desperate. That HRH tag, everyone noticed. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't clever, it was clingy. And to industry insiders, it read like a giant neon sign flashing, "I still need this title to matter." Even assistants, the people who normally stay quiet, reportedly laughed about it. Imagine being the intern who has to unpack Meghan's basket only to mutter, "Yep, still pretending she's royal." That kind of reputation spreads fast, and not in a good way. Worse, Meghan isn't adapting. Instead of realizing Hollywood wants substance, she keeps doubling down on glossy packaging. The baskets weren't heartfelt. They were cold calls with ribbons. And in a town that lives on credibility, that comes across as fake. People start asking, if the gifts are this hollow, what does that say about the person behind them? And here's the brutal truth. Meghan doesn't see it. She thinks she's making power moves, but to Hollywood she looks like someone who peaked years ago and is now begging to be let back in. And once that perception sticks, it's almost impossible to shake. The gift basket just highlighted something people have been whispering for months. Meghan's brand is collapsing under its own weight. Remember the "With Love Meghan" products? Critics said they felt overproduced and weirdly hollow. Social media mocked them as with love, but no substance. Even her supporters started to notice the disconnect, glossy packaging, but no real impact. Financial rumors only made it worse. After the Spotify fallout and Netflix's cutbacks, reports swirled that Meghan and Harry were under serious pressure. So when she spends hundreds on vanity baskets instead of delivering meaningful projects, it doesn't scream confidence, it screams panic. In today's world, audiences are sharper than ever. They can smell insecurity. And Meghan's gestures came off less like generosity and more like tone-deaf PR stunts. And then there's De Niro's rejection. He didn't need to post about it. He didn't need a dramatic statement. Just a quiet, blunt no. That silence hit harder than any tabloid headline because suddenly, the entire industry had confirmation of what they already suspected. Meghan's influence was no longer real, just manufactured. In Hollywood, once the illusion cracks, it spreads like wildfire. And Meghan, who once had every opportunity to build something solid, now finds herself exposed. Instead of a duchess turned mogul, she risks becoming something far more dangerous in this town: irrelevant. De Niro's rejection didn't just embarrass Meghan, it triggered a domino effect. In Hollywood, once the joke lands, people rush to distance themselves. Suddenly, projects tied to her slowed down. Allies who once defended her grew quiet. And A-listers made sure not to be photographed anywhere near her. Even people who might have wanted to support her hesitated, because no one wants to catch the desperation disease. And in an industry obsessed with image, being seen as needy is poison. Think about the shift. Meghan once had Oprah's backing, a massive Netflix deal, and the kind of media coverage most stars would kill for. Now, she's sending baskets no one wants, and insiders whisper about how her name feels risky to attach to a project. The transformation is brutal. She's gone from Hollywood's most watched newcomer to someone executives actively avoid. And the rejection couldn't be spun as a simple misunderstanding. It was too blunt, too public, too funny. De Niro doesn't play palace games. And by saying no without hesitation, he gave everyone else permission to laugh too. It wasn't just him rejecting a basket. It was the industry rejecting Meghan's entire playbook. And once that door closes in Hollywood, it rarely opens again. This is where the story hits hardest. Meghan Markle had every chance to reinvent herself. She had global sympathy after leaving the royals. She had the spotlight, and she had major platforms lined up. But instead of building something authentic, she leaned too hard on the royal image she claimed she left behind. And the result? A brand that now feels hollow, desperate and disconnected. De Niro's quiet no ended up being louder than any interview or PR campaign she could launch. It told Hollywood, and the public, that the illusion was gone. No amount of wine, ribbon, or borrowed prestige could buy her way back in. And now Meghan risks becoming what no star wants to be: a cautionary tale, a reminder that fame without substance burns fast. And once the fire's out, the smoke only lingers as a joke. The irony: Meghan's downfall wasn't triggered by tabloids or royal feuds. It was her own moves, overplaying her hand, misreading the room, and treating Hollywood like a palace court. But this isn't royalty. It's cutthroat entertainment. And in this world, once you're laughed at, you're... So here we are. Robert De Niro's simple rejection has now become the symbol of Meghan Markle's bigger problem. A Hollywood dream that once looked unstoppable is now cracking under its own weight. She thought a basket of wine and trinkets would buy her respect, but instead it exposed just how fragile her brand really is. And that leaves one big question. Is Meghan completely out of moves, or does she still have one last card to play? Maybe another Netflix push, maybe a dramatic rebrand, or maybe nothing at all. What do you think? Was this basket the final nail in her Hollywood image, or is there still a way back for her? Because if Robert De Niro, one of the most respected men in the industry, says no without hesitation, it makes you wonder who's left to say yes.